The Chicago skyline glittered like 1,000 promises, its lights piercing the November dusk, casting fractured reflections across Lake Michigan's icy surface. Our family estate, a Georgian masterpiece of weathered limestone draped in ivy, stood proud on the lake's edge, its tall windows glowing with the warm flicker of chandeliers. Inside, the grand dining hall was a vision of timeless elegance orchestrated for my husband James's 50th birthday. A long mahogany table gleamed under a crystal chandelier, its prisms scattering rainbows over bone china plates, polished silver cutlery, and flutes brimming with champagne. Crimson roses spilled from silver vases, their heady scent mingling with the rich aroma of roasted pheasant and truffle risotto, while a jazz quartet in the corner wove a soft melody, their notes curling like smoke through the air. I, Victoria Blackwood, sat at the table's head, my midnight blue silk gown catching the light, my posture composed, but my heart a roiling sea. At 48, I was the silent force behind Blackwood Hospitality Group, the luxury hotel and restaurant empire I'd helped my father-in-law, Kevin, build from a single lakeside inn. Yet tonight, my role as wife and mother felt like a mask I could barely hold in place. 6 months ago, a single text had torn my world apart. Love you, can't wait for tonight. It was from Olivia, my best friend since our Northwestern days, to James, my husband of 25 years. Now, Olivia sat across from me, 7 months pregnant, her hand resting on her belly, a quiet proclamation of her betrayal. James, dashing in his tailored tuxedo, avoided my eyes, his laughter forced as he charmed our guests. My mother-in-law, Eleanor, sat to my right, her silver hair gleaming, her sharp gaze missing nothing. My twin daughters, Audrey and Amelia, 22 and radiant in their emerald dresses, giggled over their wine, oblivious to the storm I was about to unleash. My fingers tightened around my champagne flute, the cold crystal anchoring me against the tide of emotions. Rage at James's infidelity, grief over Olivia's duplicity, and a bone-deep dread of the pain my next move would inflict on my girls. Beneath my calm facade, my heart pounded, each beat a reminder of the months I'd spent gathering evidence, not just of the affair, but of James's financial betrayals at our company. Kevin had left me Class B shares, granting me control, a secret James never suspected. Tonight, under the guise of celebration, I would wield that power. The jazz notes felt like a countdown, the roses scent a bitter irony. I was ready to reclaim my life, but the cost would be steep. It began on a rainy April evening, the kind where Chicago's streets shimmered like wet obsidian under flickering streetlights. I couldn't sleep, the patter of rain against our bedroom window amplifying the unease that had crept into my marriage. James's phone lay on our marble kitchen counter, its screen glowing with a notification. I picked it up, my hands trembling, driven by a gut instinct I couldn't ignore. The text from Olivia seared into my mind. Love you, can't wait for tonight. My breath caught, a sharp pain slicing through my chest as I scrolled through months of messages, intimate whispers, stolen moments, a secret life James had woven without me. Olivia, who'd held my hand through miscarriages, who'd toasted our anniversaries, had stabbed me in the heart, and James, the man I'd built a life with, had let her. Confronting him was a descent into despair. In our oak-paneled study, the rain's rhythm a relentless drumbeat, James's face flickered through denial, deflection, and finally, minimization. It was a mistake, Vic, he said, his voice smooth as silk but hollow as a drum. You're making too much of this. His dismissal was a second betrayal, reducing my pain to an inconvenience. I stood there, tears streaming silently, my hands clenched to keep from shaking. The man I loved was a stranger, and the life we'd built felt like a house of cards, But grief gave way to resolve. I couldn't let this destroy me. Suspicion turned to Blackwood Hospitality Group, the empire I'd poured my soul into, alongside Kevin. James, as CEO, had taken the spotlight, but I knew the numbers better than anyone. I hired a forensic accountant, meeting her in a nondescript Loop cafe, the air thick with espresso and secrecy. Her findings were a gut punch. Teal. $5 million diverted to offshore accounts, contracts awarded to phantom vendors, deals that enriched James while jeopardizing the company's stability. Each report fueled my anger, a fire that burned away my tears. I wasn't just fighting for my marriage. I was fighting for my legacy. The turning point came in a dusty safe deposit box at First Chicago Bank, where I found Kevin's will. Tucked among yellowed papers was a letter. Victoria, you're the heart of this company. These Class B shares give you control. Protect what we built. The shares, granting me 51% voting power, were my salvation. Kevin had seen what James couldn't. My strength. My vision. The discovery brought a flicker of pride, a lifeline amidst the wreckage of my trust. I spent months preparing, meeting Gerald Rothman, our family lawyer, in his office, where the scent of leather and old books steadied my nerves. Every document, every email, every transaction was a brick in the wall I was building. I suppressed my emotions, channeling them into strategy until tonight. At the dinner, my senses were razor sharp. The clink of silverware was a metronome, counting down to my moment. James's forced laughter grated, each chuckle a mockery of our vows. Olivia's nervous glances, her fingers twisting her napkin, screamed her guilt. Eleanor's silence was a weight, her eyes darting between us, sensing the fracture. Audrey and Amelia's carefree chatter pierced my heart. I dreaded the pain my words would bring them, but I couldn't shield them from the truth. When James stood to toast, his voice booming with false warmth, my pulse surged. This was it. I rose, my gown rustling like a battle flag, my heart thundering. Before we toast, I said, my voice clear as the chandelier's crystal, I have something to share. The room froze, the jazz quartet pausing mid-note, their bows hovering over strings. All eyes turned to me, the air thick with anticipation. James's smile faltered, a crack in his polished facade. Olivia's hand stilled on her glass, her face paling. Eleanor's gaze sharpened, a hawk sensing prey. Audrey and Amelia exchanged puzzled glances, their laughter silenced. My throat tightened, a lump of grief and fury threatening to choke me, but I pressed on, my words a blade forged in months of silent agony. For 6 months, I've carried a truth that threatens our family and our company. I began, my voice steady, despite the tears pricking my eyes. It starts with James's affair with Olivia, who is pregnant with his child. Gasps shattered the silence. Eleanor's face darkened, her knuckles whitening on her cane. Audrey's eyes widened, her fork clattering to her plate, a sharp clang echoing in the stillness. Amelia whispered, "Mom, what?" Her voice trembling, her hand reaching for her sister's. Olivia flushed crimson, her gaze dropping to her lap, her fingers clutching her napkin like a lifeline. James surged to his feet, his face a mask of rage.
"Victoria, how dare you ruin this night?"
he roared, his voice shaking the crystal flutes.
"It's not just your betrayal,"
I continued, my voice cutting through his outburst like a knife.
"You've endangered Blackwood Hospitality with your greed,
siphoning millions to offshore accounts, signing deals that benefit you at our expense." I slid a leather folder across the table, its contents spilling. Bank statements, emails, contracts, each page a testament to his deceit.
"The board knows. They meet tomorrow."
James's voice cracked, a mix of fury and fear.
You're lying. You can't prove this.
I can, I said, meeting his gaze, my heart aching at the stranger before me. Because Kevin left me Class B shares. I control this company, James. Not you. The room erupted. Eleanor's sharp intake of breath was a thunderclap, her eyes blazing with a mix of shock and pride. Audrey sobbed, her hands covering her face, while Amelia gripped her arm, tears streaming. James shouted denials, his words incoherent, his face flushed with desperation. Olivia sat frozen, her shame a palpable weight. The guests, friends, colleagues, distant cousins, whispered, their murmurs a rising tide. I stood firm, my legs trembling beneath my gown, my heart torn between triumph and sorrow. I had lit a fuse, and there was no turning back. Dawn broke over Chicago, the skyline cloaked in a silver mist, the air heavy with the scent of impending rain. The Blackwood headquarters, a sleek glass tower in the Loop, rose like a sentinel, its reflective facade mirroring the city's restless energy. Inside, the boardroom was a fortress of power. A polished ebony table stretched beneath a wall of windows, framing the Willis Tower against a bruised sky. Leather chairs creaked as board members settled, their faces a mix of curiosity and unease. I stood at the room's head, my navy suit tailored to precision, my face a mask of resolve. Inside, I was a storm. Nerves twisting my stomach, grief for my daughter's pain, and a fierce determination to protect our legacy. James sat across from me, his jaw tight, his eyes bloodshot from a sleepless night, the weight of his betrayal etched into his features. Eleanor, in a charcoal dress, sat to my right, her presence a silent bulwark, her cane resting like a scepter. Gerald Rothman, our lawyer, stood beside me, his silver hair catching the light, his calm demeanor a lifeline in the chaos. The board members, seasoned executives, old allies, and wary newcomers, shifted in their seats, their murmurs a low hum, like static before a storm. I began, my voice steady, but laced with the raw pain I'd carried for months. I've given my life to Blackwood hospitality, working with Kevin to build a legacy of excellence. But James has betrayed that legacy, not just personally, but professionally. I recounted his affair, each word a wound reopened, my throat tightening as I saw Audrey and Amelia, present as junior board members, flinch at the truth. The board shifted uncomfortably, some avoiding James's gaze, others whispering. Then, I turned to the financial misconduct. Gerald distributed folders, each page a damning indictment. $2.5 million siphoned to a Cayman account, contracts with fictitious vendors, emails plotting to undermine shareholders. James prioritized personal gain over our mission, I said, my voice rising with conviction, my hands steady despite the tremor in my heart. He's unfit to lead. James leaped up, his face flushed, his voice a desperate roar. This is a witch hunt. Victoria's twisting the truth to steal my company. His eyes darted to the board, seeking allies, but found only averted gazes. His desperation was palpable, a man watching his empire crumble. Eleanor's voice cut through the chaos, sharp as a blade. Enough, James. You've shamed this family. Her disappointment was a physical force, her love for her son warring with disgust. Audrey's tears fell silently, her hands clasped tightly with Amelia's, their pain a mirror of my own. The vote was swift. With my Class B shares, the outcome was inevitable. James was removed as CEO, and I was appointed in his place. As the gavel fell, a weight lifted from my shoulders, but a new fear crept in. That morning, an anonymous email had landed in my inbox. You've won the battle, but the war's just begun. James isn't alone. The words chilled me, a shadow looming over my victory. The email haunted me as I stepped into my new role. My office, once Kevin's, was a haven of dark walnut and leather, its wide windows framing Lake Michigan's restless waves, their churn mirroring my unease. The scent of polished wood and fresh coffee grounded me, but tranquility was a lie. Late nights poring over company records revealed a deeper rot. Transactions linked to Vincent Russo, a name whispered in Chicago's underworld. Russo, a financier with ties to organized crime, had used Blackwood's accounts to launder money, and James was his pawn. Fear clawed at my chest, mingling with fury. How had I missed this? The betrayal was no longer just personal. It was existential, threatening the empire I'd fought for. My daughter's faces, Audrey's tear-streaked cheeks, Amelia's quiet shock, flashed in my mind, fueling my resolve. I confided in Gerald, meeting him in his office, where the air was thick with pipe smoke and the weight of old books. "Russo's dangerous," he warned, his brow furrowed, his voice low. "We need more than suspicions." Rachel Harper, a private investigator recommended by Eleanor, became my ally. We met in a dimly lit diner, the air heavy with grease and the hiss of a coffee machine. Rachel, her dark eyes sharp, slid a USB drive across the Formica table. "Russo's web," she said, her voice clipped. "Shell companies, encrypted emails, threats to James if he didn't comply. This has what you need." My hands trembled as I plugged the drive into my laptop, my office bathed in the city's neon glow. The files were a labyrinth of deceit, proof of Russo's laundering, James's complicity, and a chilling note. "Blackwood Falls if you cross me." My breath caught, a cold sweat prickling my skin, but determination burned brighter. I wouldn't let Russo destroy my family. I confronted James in his new apartment, a stark contrast to our estate, its air stale with coffee and regret. He sat slumped on a worn couch, his face haggard, his eyes hollow. "I didn't want this," he said, his voice breaking, a shadow of the man I'd loved. "Russo threatened Audrey and Amelia." My heart twisted, pity warring with anger, but his words couldn't erase his choices. "You had a choice," I said, my voice cold, my hands clenched to hide their shaking. "You chose wrong." As I left, my phone buzzed with another anonymous text. "Russo knows you're digging. Watch your back." My blood ran cold, my pulse racing. Was someone inside the company betraying me? Desperate for answers, I turned to Linda Thompson, Kevin's former assistant, now a reclusive philanthropist. Her penthouse, high above the city, was a minimalist sanctuary of glass and white marble. The air scented with jasmine, a stark contrast to my turmoil. I sat across from her, my nerves frayed, my voice trembling as I explained Russo's threat, the fear for my daughter's safety a weight on my chest. Linda's eyes softened, but her words were a shock. "Kevin didn't just leave you shares," she said, handing me a sealed envelope, its paper crisp with age. "He left you evidence." Inside was a dossier from Kevin's final case, a lawsuit against a conglomerate tied to Russo's crimes. The shares were Kevin's insurance, ensuring I could protect the company if his enemies struck. Linda revealed she'd been working with the FBI, using Kevin's dossier to build a case against Russo. My shares were a decoy, hiding my role in the sting. "You're the key," Linda said, her voice steady but urgent. "Your evidence can end this." My mind reeled, fear warring with purpose. I wasn't just saving my company, I was dismantling a criminal empire. The realization was both empowering and terrifying, my heart racing at the stakes. Linda's calm resolve steadied me, her trust a lifeline. I saw Kevin in her eyes, his faith in me echoing across the years. With Linda's guidance, I delivered the dossier to the FBI, meeting agents in a nondescript office that reeked of burnt coffee and bureaucracy. The operation moved swiftly. Russo was arrested in a dawn raid, his network exposed. Blackwood hospitality was cleared, but the fallout was brutal. Shareholders demanded transparency, their voices sharp in boardroom debates. The press hounded me, their cameras flashing like predators outside our hotels. I faced them with a steady gaze, my heart heavy, but my spine unbowed. I threw myself into rebuilding. The boardroom, my war room, its windows framing Chicago's relentless pulse. I implemented ethical policies, audited every account, and met stakeholders in hotel lobbies thick with the scent of polished wood and ambition. My days were endless, my nights sleepless. The weight of leadership a constant pressure, but each step forward dulled the ache of betrayal. Each policy a brick in the wall I was rebuilding. Eleanor became my anchor, her sharp wit a balm. In the estate's library, surrounded by leather-bound books and the crackle of a fire, she confessed her shame, her voice thick with regret. "I raised him better," she said, her eyes glistening. I squeezed her hand, our bond forged in shared loss, her strength a mirror of my own. Audrey and Amelia struggled, their trust in their father shattered. In their childhood bedroom, posters faded, but memories vivid. They cried in my arms, their sobs a knife to my heart. "Why, Mom?" Audrey whispered, her voice raw, her face buried in my shoulder. Amelia clung to me, her silence louder than words. I had no answers, only love, my embrace a vow to protect them. We rebuilt together, their ideas sparking new ventures for the company, their resilience a testament to our family's strength. James reached out, his letters arriving in my office, their ink smudged with his pleas for forgiveness. I read them alone, the city's lights blurring through tears. I insured his child's future with a trust fund, a gesture born of duty, not warmth. Forgiveness was a path I wasn't ready to walk, my heart still scarred. A final revelation came from Linda. The anonymous texts were from her, sent to keep me vigilant, a safeguard Kevin had entrusted to her. "He believed in you," Linda said, her voice soft, her eyes warm. The truth brought closure, a reminder of the allies who'd carried me through. 2 years later, I stood on the estate's balcony, the Chicago skyline a tapestry of light against a twilight sky, the lake's waves whispering below. The air was crisp, scented with pine and the promise of winter. Blackwood hospitality thrived under my leadership, its reputation restored, its future bright. Audrey and Amelia had joined the company, their innovation breathing new life into our legacy, their laughter a melody in our halls. Eleanor, now retired, mentored young entrepreneurs, her pride in me unspoken but clear in her steady gaze. James ran a small consulting firm, his life quieter, his mistakes a shadow he couldn't escape. We met occasionally, our conversations polite but distant, the love we'd shared a faded photograph in my heart. Olivia raised their son, supported by my generosity, a duty I fulfilled without warmth. As I sipped my wine, the cool glass grounding me, I felt a profound peace. The betrayal that had nearly broken me had forged me anew. I'd protected my family, honored Kevin's trust, and built a legacy stronger than ever. The jazz from that fateful night echoed in my memory, but now it was a song of triumph, not pain. I was Victoria Blackwood, unbroken, unbowed, and ready for whatever lay ahead.